True honor is not created through praise, attachment, or emotional intensity. It is born when one person inwardly recognizes the psychological reality of another. This kind of recognition happens quietly, without announcement, because it arises from perception rather than desire. When someone honors you in this way, they are not responding to what you provide, how you appear, or how you serve their needs. They are responding to what you are. This recognition is rare because most people see others through projections shaped by fear, longing, or unhealed wounds. To truly honor someone requires the ability to see clearly, and clarity is only developed through inner struggle. When a person has faced their own contradictions and accepted them, they become capable of respecting the complexity of another human being. Honor, in this sense, is not admiration. It is acknowledgement. It is the decision to treat another person as psychologically real, not as a symbol, role, or solution to one's inner emptiness. When a person places you on their inner altar, they are not elevating you above themselves. Instead, they are creating a protected space within their psyche where your existence is valued and safeguarded. This does not lead to control or dependency, because what is sacred cannot be owned. It can only be approached with care. Such love is disciplined. It does not rush, demand, or invade. It waits, listens, and observes. The one who honors you understands that closeness without respect becomes destruction. Therefore, they choose restraint over impulse. They do not attempt to change you to make themselves comfortable. They accept that your individuality must remain intact for love to stay alive. In this space, silence is not neglect, and distance is not rejection. Everything is guided by an inner rule: do no harm to what you value. This is love shaped by consciousness, not instinct alone. To be honored in this way often feels unfamiliar, even unsettling, because it does not resemble the dramatic patterns most people associate with love. There may be fewer words, fewer promises, and fewer displays. Instead, there is consistency, attentiveness, and emotional responsibility. This kind of bond grows slowly because it is built on truth rather than fantasy. The person who honors you understands that real connection strengthens both individuals instead of merging them. They do not seek to escape themselves through you. Rather, they meet you as another complete inner world. In such recognition, love becomes stabilizing instead of consuming. It does not ask you to abandon yourself to be accepted. Instead, it quietly affirms that who you are is worthy of care. This is the deepest form of love, because it survives without illusion and endures without possession. The idea of a sacred altar is not religious in the external sense, but psychological in its deepest meaning. An altar represents what a person chooses to protect from carelessness, misuse, and unconscious behavior. When someone places you there within themselves, it means you have crossed a threshold from being merely important to being inwardly valued. This valuation does not come from infatuation or idealization. It emerges when a person has learned, often through disappointment and self-confrontation, that not everything meaningful should be consumed or possessed. You become something they approach with awareness. They are careful with their words, their expectations, and even their emotions around you. This care is not fear of loss, but respect for significance. They sense that your presence touches something essential in them, something that required suffering to uncover. Therefore, they refuse to treat you casually. In a world driven by impulse and immediacy, choosing reverence is a rare psychological achievement. To place another on an inner altar also means recognizing limits. The person understands that closeness without boundaries leads to erosion rather than intimacy. They do not demand access to every part of you because they know mystery is not distance, but depth. This recognition allows love to breathe. Instead of pulling you into their unresolved conflicts, they take responsibility for their inner state. They do not expect you to heal them, complete them, or carry their emotional weight. What they honor in you is your separate existence. In doing so, they also protect themselves from turning love into dependency. This dynamic creates stability because neither person is reduced to a function. The altar is not a pedestal, it is a place of balance. You are not elevated above reality, nor are you dragged into it. You are met where you stand as you are, without the pressure to perform or transform. Such inner valuation often feels subtle, even anticlimactic, because it lacks drama, yet it has endurance. The person who honors you in this way remains present even when emotions fluctuate. They do not withdraw respect during conflict, nor do they intensify attachment during harmony. Their valuation is steady because it is rooted in understanding rather than mood. Over time, this creates a sense of psychological safety. You are not constantly proving your worth because it has already been recognized. This is why such love feels grounding instead of intoxicating. It does not lift you away from yourself, but returns you to yourself with greater clarity. To be placed on a sacred altar is not to be worshipped, but to be taken seriously as a human being. And in a fragmented world, being truly valued is one of the rarest and most healing experiences a person can receive. Love that truly honors another human being does not emerge from hunger, fear of loneliness, or the need to be completed. It arises from awareness. Awareness means the individual has spent time observing their own inner movements, recognizing where desire ends and dependency begins. When love is born from dependency, it seeks reassurance, control, and constant confirmation. It clings because it is afraid to stand alone. But when love grows from conscious awareness, it is calm. It does not need to bind or demand, because it is not trying to escape inner emptiness. A person who loves from awareness knows the difference between wanting someone and valuing them. Wanting seeks relief. Valuing seeks understanding. This distinction changes everything. The honoring love does not rush intimacy because it respects the pace of psychological truth. It understands that closeness without clarity creates confusion, not connection. Such love is grounded in the capacity to remain present without consuming the other. When a person has learned to stand within themselves, they no longer approach relationships as lifelines. Instead, they approach them as encounters. This is where honoring love becomes possible. Dependency always asks, "What can you give me so I feel whole?" Conscious love asks, "Who are you, truly?" The first reduces the other to a function. The second recognizes the other as a complete inner world. This recognition brings restraint, patience, and respect. The person does not project their unmet needs onto you or expect you to stabilize their emotional state. They take responsibility for their inner conflicts rather than outsourcing them. In doing so, they create space where you are free to exist without pressure. This freedom is not distance, it is trust. It allows both individuals to remain intact. Love here does not collapse identities, it strengthens them. What is honored is not usefulness, but presence. Such love may feel unfamiliar, especially to those accustomed to intensity being mistaken for depth. It may feel quieter, slower, and less dramatic, yet it has weight. It endures because it is not dependent on constant emotional stimulation. The person who loves you from awareness remains respectful even when emotions fluctuate. They do not withdraw dignity during disagreement, nor do they exaggerate closeness during harmony. Their honoring remains steady because it is anchored in understanding. This creates a bond that feels safe rather than consuming. You are not required to abandon yourself to be loved. You are not required to perform, heal, or rescue. You are simply recognized. And in that recognition, Love becomes an act of consciousness rather than a reaction to inner lack. This is the love that places you on a sacred altar, not to possess you, but to protect what you are. Profound inner transformation often begins in moments of loss, disappointment, or disillusionment. When the structures that once provided meaning collapse, the individual is forced inward. This inward turn is not comfortable. It dismantles false identities and exposes contradictions that were previously hidden behind habit and social roles. Yet it is precisely through this confrontation that a deeper clarity emerges. A person who has passed through such an inner passage no longer seeks quick validation or superficial connection. They have learned that what is most valuable cannot be rushed or consumed. When such a person encounters you, they do not approach with urgency or fantasy. They approach with recognition. They sense something familiar, not because you complete them, but because you reflect a depth they have already met within themselves. This is why the honoring begins quietly. It is rooted in shared psychological maturity rather than emotional excitement. After transformation, perception changes. The individual no longer sees others as solutions to their unresolved pain. Instead, they recognize the presence of another human being as an independent reality. This shift is essential. Without it, love remains a projection. With it, love becomes an encounter. When someone who has undergone inner transformation values you, they do so without illusion. They do not imagine you as flawless, nor do they reduce you to your wounds. They see both, and they remain. This staying is not passive endurance. It is an active choice grounded in understanding. They know that depth includes contradiction, and they are no longer frightened by it. What they honor in you is your capacity to be real. This recognition creates a sense of gravity in the relationship. Words are chosen carefully. Actions are restrained, not because of fear, but because significance demands responsibility. Such honoring often feels different from what culture portrays as love. There may be fewer declarations and more presence, fewer promises and more consistency. This is because the person has learned that meaning is sustained through behavior, not intensity. Their transformation has taught them that unconscious attachment destroys what it claims to cherish. Therefore, they protect what they value by approaching it with care. When they place you on their inner altar, it is not an act of elevation, but of preservation. You are not idealized, you are safeguarded. In this space, love does not demand that you become something else. It allows you to unfold at your own pace. This is the quiet power of inner transformation. It produces a form of love that does not need to prove itself, because it has already endured the hardest test, the encounter with the self. When someone truly honors you, they are not responding to the image you present to the world. They are responding to something deeper, something that cannot be maintained through performance. Every individual carries a social mask shaped by expectation and survival. This mask allows us to function, but it is not where truth resides. Most relationships interact only at this surface level, exchanging roles rather than realities. The one who honors you senses the difference. They notice what remains consistent when the mask loosens. They observe how you respond when you are not admired, when you are uncertain, or when you are silent. What they value is not your confidence or usefulness, but your coherence. They see the continuity of your inner life. This kind of perception requires patience and attentiveness, qualities that develop only when a person is no longer rushing to secure validation. To see beyond the mask is to risk encountering complexity, and only those who have accepted their own are capable of such vision. Recognizing wholeness means acknowledging both light and shadow without attempting to correct either. The person who honors you does not split you into acceptable and unacceptable parts. They understand that fragmentation weakens the psyche, while integration strengthens it. Because they have faced their own contradictions, they are not threatened by yours. This allows them to remain steady in moments when others might withdraw. They do not idealize your strengths or dramatize your flaws. Instead, they hold a balanced image of you that can withstand reality. This balance is what makes their honoring feel safe. You are not pressured to maintain an image to preserve their regard. Their respect does not collapse when you reveal uncertainty. In fact, honesty deepens their valuation because it confirms psychological truth. What they honor is your capacity to be whole, not your ability to appear flawless. Such recognition creates a unique form of intimacy. It does not rush disclosure or demand emotional exposure. It allows depth to emerge naturally, without force. The person who honors your wholeness knows that intimacy grows through trust, not urgency. They do not confuse closeness with intrusion. Instead, they remain attentive to boundaries, understanding that boundaries protect meaning. In this space, you are free to exist without distortion. You are not asked to be more or less than you are. This is why such honoring feels grounding rather than overwhelming. It strengthens self-respect instead of replacing it. To be seen in your wholeness is to be met without fragmentation, and when another human being can do this, they place you on a sacred altar, not as an object of devotion, but as a reality worthy of care. Respect for individuality is one of the highest psychological achievements in any relationship. Most forms of attachment unconsciously attempt to shape the other into something familiar, manageable, or comforting. This happens not out of cruelty, but out of fear. When difference threatens inner stability, the impulse is to correct or control it. The person who honors you has moved beyond this impulse. They understand that individuality is not an obstacle to love, but its foundation. What they respect in you is not how well you fit into their life, but how fully you belong to yourself. They do not experience your independence as distance or rejection. Instead, they recognize it as proof of inner strength. This respect allows them to approach you without the urge to interfere. They listen without preparing a response. They observe without interpreting everything through their own needs. Such restraint is not indifference. It is discipline born from awareness. When someone values your individuality, they also accept that you cannot be fully known or possessed. This acceptance changes the tone of connection. There is less interrogation and more curiosity, less expectation and more patience. The person does not rush to define you because definition often limits growth. They allow you to evolve without feeling threatened by change. This is possible only when a person has made peace with uncertainty within themselves. Instead of seeking security through sameness, they find stability in respect. They do not attempt to absorb your identity or merge it with theirs, nor do they retreat into emotional distance. They remain present while allowing space. This balance creates trust. You are not watched for signs of deviation, nor are you required to reassure them constantly. Your individuality is not something to be negotiated. It is something to be protected. Such respect transforms love into a witnessing rather than a claiming. The person becomes attentive to who you are becoming, not who they want you to remain. They understand that real connection does not freeze identity. It supports movement. In honoring your individuality, they also reinforce their own. Two separate inner worlds meet without collapsing into one another. This creates a bond that feels dignified rather than consuming. You are not diminished to maintain harmony. You are not reshaped to preserve closeness. Instead, you are allowed to stand fully as yourself. This is why being honored in this way feels stabilizing. It strengthens self-respect instead of replacing it. To be loved without being altered is rare. And when someone chooses to protect your individuality rather than absorb it, they place you on a sacred altar where freedom and respect coexist. Sacred love is fundamentally different from ordinary attachment because it does not arise from the urge to claim, secure, or dominate. Possession is driven by fear of loss, by the anxiety that something valuable might disappear if it is not tightly held. Sacred love emerges only when a person has confronted this fear within themselves. They understand that what is truly meaningful cannot be protected through control. In fact, control slowly destroys what it seeks to preserve. When someone loves you in a sacred way, they do not treat you as an extension of their identity or as a source of emotional stability. They recognize that your existence has its own center, separate from their needs. This recognition creates reverence. Reverence slows behavior. It introduces care into speech, patience into action, and humility into expectation. The person does not approach you with entitlement. They approach you with awareness, knowing that to possess is to reduce, but to witness is to honor. To witness rather than possess requires inner strength. It demands the ability to tolerate uncertainty, distance, and difference without collapsing into anxiety. The one who honors you understands that love does not grant ownership over another's inner world. They do not demand access to your thoughts, your time, or your emotional landscape as proof of connection. Instead, they remain present without intrusion. They respect boundaries not as barriers, but as structures that protect meaning. This form of love does not disappear when you assert independence, nor does it intensify into control when closeness deepens. It remains steady. The person knows that what is sacred must be allowed to exist freely, or it loses its essence. In this way, love becomes protective rather than consuming. It shields rather than claims. It creates a space where trust can grow naturally without pressure or surveillance. When love takes this form, it feels dignified. There is no need to perform, reassure, or constantly affirm loyalty. You are not asked to shrink to maintain harmony, nor to expand to fulfill expectations. You are simply allowed to be. This is why sacred love feels safe without becoming stagnant. It does not trap you in roles or narratives. It adapts as you grow. The person who honors you understands that real connection is sustained through respect, not intensity. They do not fear your autonomy because they do not confuse closeness with fusion. By choosing not to possess you, they paradoxically preserve the bond. They place you on a sacred altar not to bind you there, but to ensure that nothing in them would harm what they value. This is love at its most mature. A quiet commitment to protect the other's freedom while remaining fully present. When two integrated selves encounter one another, the meeting carries a distinct psychological weight. Integration means that a person has faced their inner divisions and no longer needs another to compensate for what is missing within. Such an individual does not approach connection from hunger, but from presence. When they meet you, they are not scanning for reassurance, validation, or rescue. They are attentive. They notice not only what you express, but how you carry yourself in silence. This depth of attention signals respect. It arises because they recognize in you a similar inner coherence. They sense that you are not fragmented by constant self-denial or unconscious imitation. This recognition creates a bond that does not rush to define itself. It allows meaning to emerge slowly, without force. The encounter feels grounded because neither person is trying to escape themselves through the other. Instead, they meet as two inner worlds capable of standing on their own. Such a meeting transforms love into a mutual acknowledgement rather than a pursuit. There is no need to impress or convince because recognition has already occurred. Each person feels seen without being exposed. This balance is delicate. It requires emotional maturity and restraint. The individuals involved understand that depth cannot be rushed without being distorted. Therefore, they allow space, silence, and uncertainty without panic. Their connection is not fueled by constant intensity, but by a steady sense of respect. Conflict, when it arises, does not threaten the bond because it is not built on illusion. Differences are not interpreted as rejection. They are understood as expressions of individuality. In this way, the relationship becomes a place of psychological growth rather than regression. Both remain responsible for their inner states. Neither seeks to dominate or dissolve into the other. When two integrated selves meet, love becomes stabilizing instead of consuming. It does not demand sacrifice of identity to survive. Instead, it strengthens self-awareness. Each person feels more themselves in the presence of the other, not less. This is the quiet miracle of such an encounter. It does not intoxicate, but it endures. The honoring that emerges here is mutual. Each recognizes the other as a reality worthy of care. This mutual recognition creates a sacred space where freedom and connection coexist. No one is placed above the other, yet both are valued deeply. This is what it means to be placed on a sacred altar, not to be worshipped, but to be taken seriously as a human being. In this meeting, love is no longer a search for completion. It is a shared awareness that wholeness has already been achieved within and can now be honored between. When honor enters a relationship, it often arrives after long periods of silence, distance, or misunderstanding. This is because true recognition is rarely immediate. It forms when a person has observed you over time, across different emotional states, and has not withdrawn their respect. Honor matures through consistency. It is shaped by how someone responds when you are not pleasing, not impressive, and not available to fulfill expectation. The one who truly honors you does not measure your worth by moments of harmony alone. They notice how you maintain integrity under pressure, how you remain aligned with yourself even when it costs you comfort. This observation creates trust. They learn that your character is not situational. Such honor is never rushed because it depends on psychological evidence, not fantasy. When it finally settles, it feels solid and quiet. It does not seek recognition. It simply changes how you are treated, spoken to, and protected within the other's inner world. This form of honoring reshapes the emotional atmosphere between two people. There is less reactivity and more reflection. The person who honors you does not rush to interpret your actions through fear or assumption. They pause. They consider context. They are willing to tolerate ambiguity rather than distort reality for emotional relief. This restraint is a sign of maturity. It shows they are no longer governed by impulse alone. Instead of demanding immediate clarity, they allow understanding to unfold. This creates emotional safety. You are not constantly defending your intentions or managing their insecurity. Their honor remains intact even during disagreement because it is not dependent on agreement. They do not weaponize vulnerability or withdraw dignity to regain control. What they protect most is the quality of the connection itself. They understand that once respect is broken, closeness becomes fragile. Therefore, they choose behavior that preserves trust, even when emotions are unsettled. Over time, being honored in this way changes how you experience yourself. You feel less compelled to explain, justify, or perform. Your nervous system begins to settle because it is no longer scanning for emotional threat. You are met with steadiness instead of volatility. This does not make the relationship static. It makes it resilient. Growth is possible because the foundation is secure. The person who honors you is not afraid of your evolution. They do not cling to old versions of you to maintain familiarity. Instead, they remain attentive to who you are becoming. This attentiveness is a form of love that does not demand reciprocity as a transaction. It is offered freely but responsibly. To be placed on a sacred altar in this sense is to be held in consistent regard, protected from misuse, and approached with care. It is not dramatic, but it is profound. It is the kind of love that quietly endures because it is built on honor rather than need.